Kia ora everybody, welcome to Tech Week TV. This morning, this is going to be a special session hosted by Blockchain New Zealand. It's From Paint to Pixels, the History and Future of Art. I am joined today by two of my favourite people in the entire world, who are also NFT and art experts. So, Scott, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Scott Laurie. I run a gallery called the Scott Laurie Gallery and also a digital platform called Fountain, where we bring artists that might not get exposure with their NFTs to life. And I've been doing that now for 6 years for the gallery and about a year for Fountain.
How long have you owned your gallery for?
This is the 6th year, so 3 iterations. I had the Vivian in Matakana, and when I moved to Auckland, I renamed that Scott Laurie Gallery. We're in Grey Lynn and now in Mount Eden.
Excellent. And Jamie Cochran.
Hi, I'm Jamie Cochran. I'm a partner at Lane Neve. I'm a lawyer. I specialise in disputes and crypto. I've worn my powder blue pants today as a homage of sorts to my time as a fine arts student at AUT, and also to, in a probably failed attempt to demonstrate that I'm not a boring corporate lawyer.
No way.
Never boring. But James is also on our Blockchain NZ Executive Council and founded the Law and Regulations Working Group with me. I actually forgot to introduce myself. So I'm Alison Mackey, Executive Director at NZ Tech. I run several of our industry groups, including Blockchain NZ. So why do I also have some authority to talk about art? Well, I actually have an art history degree, so I can claim slight criticism here and there. But yeah, I think this is really selfish session for myself because I love talking about art and I love how technology intercepts almost everything that we touch in our daily lives. And so I kind of want to start the session off to talk about the history of art and how do we get to where we are today. So, Scott.
So that's the history of NFTs is relatively new, and even the history of digital art, I would argue, or time-based art, as it's now called, as it's now framed, is also quite new. But since the advent of computers, since the 1970s, artists have been utilising those tools. If you look through art history, and when we talk about art history, I'm referring to Western Eurocentric art history. There's now art histories, you know. The particular monolithic one I wanted to address was Western European art history. And if you look through the history of art, there's always been seminal moments. And you can take that right back to the sort of 13th century. You go all the way back to Padua and the Giotto frescoes at the Scrovegna Chapel. Now, why was that? You know, little paintings of Jesus doing his little thing. And why was that sort of a seminal moment in art? And the reason it was seminal is because Giotto made Jesus human. So it stopped becoming this sort of thing in the sky and this really spiritual thing. It became about, he grounded Jesus. He put him into everyday context, everyday culture, everyday life. Really seminal.
Well, it was also because what do you call it, chapel, everything was in Latin. So you had people who couldn't speak Latin, not understanding what they were being preached about. And then so you had all these frescoes telling the story of Jesus. It made it accessible.
Yeah.
That was the first time art became accessible.
That's absolutely, and they were called collegiate churches because, you know, that's where the word college comes from. You would go in and you would learn something. Yeah. The sort of brothers would point something out about how the stars worked or how the sun worked or whatever. And if you look at those movements in art, they came through things like, you know, another really pivotal one was Impressionism. People hated Monet when he first showed. You know, I mean, the critics went all out to get him. They did not like this new form of very messy, colourful, splodgy art. Critics all walked out on that. Whereas now we see Monet and the Impressionists as a really important movement in art. I guess we look for moments of change. You can take that right up to Cubism. Braque and Picasso, you know, the development, the idea that for the first time in human history, artists could paint in 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional surface. Really interesting conceptually. You know, you take that through modernism. You look at the idea of Andy Warhol and his multiples. And this becomes really pertinent to the conversation we're going to have on NFTs. And, you know, he said, in the future, everybody will be famous for 15 minutes. He was really into the notion of multiples, the idea that art could go from something that's rare and commodified into something that everyone could enjoy. And that brings us up to the sort of present day with this new thing called NFTs. And
Scott, well, perhaps you could explain why your business is called Fountain.
That's a really good one, actually. And a really important pivotal moment really the birth of conceptual art.
You decided not to go with the dunny?
That's right. It was Marcel Duchamp who in 1917, he took a urinal that you'd pee in, and he placed that urinal upside down on a pedestal and put it into an art gallery show. Now what that did was it removed the function of the urinal, and you had to view it as something else. You had to view it based on pure form. And so he said, well, you have to look at it as a sculpture now and not a urinal. Hence the birth of conceptual art. And that piece was called Fountain. And that's why I called our platform Fountain, because I thought, well, we're coming to a pivotal moment in art history again, where the potential and the excitement of this stuff could really turn things upside down. I reckon we're in a moment where a fascinating moment where art can go one of two ways. We can bring in NFTs and these new tools and this new technology into art history, or we create another one. And I'm betting on we're going to create another one. I think there's something really exciting about to happen in the world of art.
Yeah. I think I guess we'll come to this, but you know, where do I think this is all heading? We're going to have digital worlds and physical worlds, and you're going to have very immersive experiences that will involve the real life, but also artistic expression of reality and unreality. And it's all going to intersect with finance and tech and various other issues.
Yeah.
Finance is an important point.
Yeah.
'Cause the art world at the moment is driven by money, which is why a lot of young artists are really turned off by it. It's become a commodity, rich people buying questionable artworks, putting millions into buying stuff. The price they're paying is not necessarily correlated to the cultural value of the object. But art's always been built on rarity. It's a thing that collectors nobody else does, therefore it's kind of important to the collection. And digital art doesn't do that. Digital art can be far more egalitarian.
It can, and also, the same argument can be made that people are paying ridiculous amounts of money for clip art JPEGs of monkeys, and you might have a copy of a monkey, but is it the Bored Ape Yacht Club monkey? And this is where NFT and the blockchain comes in, where it can create digital scarcity for these assets, which, you can make a copy of the Mona Lisa, but you always know that the real Mona Lisa is the Mona Lisa, and you always know a copy's a copy.
Yeah, and then again that circles back to Marcel Duchamp and the LHOQ. So during the mass reproduction age, people would go in to see the Mona Lisa, but then they could also walk out and have a little representation on a little piece of card of the Mona Lisa. So Marcel Duchamp also scribbled all over it, wrote LHOQ, which in French translates to "she has a hot ass." Fantastic.
Nice.
And again, that's another intersection of art and technology as well. It's using the ability to mass produce things. And that's where I thought Fountain actually came from. The ability to mass produce and sell not the original, but copies.
Yeah, it was a bit...
So I think that's another interesting part of the conversation with NFTs as well, is the ability to access art that doesn't have to be the original.
The egalitarian aspect is my favourite thing about Fountain, and actually about all NFT platforms at the moment. Now, arguably, the ones and zeros in the asset, in the artwork, whether you have an NFT attached to that set of ones and zeros or a copy of it, it's the same thing. The purity is the same. The experience you're going to have on your iPad, on your phone, or your telly at home, if you're playing that piece of digital art without owning it, is the same as the person who owned it. So NFTs allow us to do this wonderful thing where you can get the best of both worlds. Everyone can own a copy of something, the original copy. But only 3 people, if you do an edition of 3, can actually have the certificate of ownership attached to it.
Did you guys recently hear that there were 2 Rembrandts found, discovered through an auction recently of the people who originally owned the Rembrandts? They have passed away and they went to an auction to pass on. They'd never been seen before, and there's always this moment of really rich people, their collections, when they pass away and they have to go to an auction, you get this glimpse of a history and time that then goes from one person's collection to another, and the only time you can ever see it is if you're in that auction room. But the thing is, if you have NFTs, the ability to put your artwork on a marketplace, there will be like this extra layer of exposure to your work. Even if you paint, if you still want to use the traditional art forms, and then create an electronic version of it, there's still that accessibility to
I
it.
think there's a lot of things going on. What you about Ali, the idea of people not realizing that there was artwork by a particular artist, that's part of what the blockchain attempts to solve. I mean, it's like this. The way I think about a blockchain is it's a network of computers verifying a database. It's an open, public database, and it can't be tampered with. You can add blocks to it, you can add more information to it, but you can't tamper with it. So if you're the original owner of a non-fungible token, an NFT, which is a unique digital asset, you can track the provenance, which is the art term, for the artwork as it gets traded between wallets on the blockchain. Compare an NFT to a currency which is fungible. The NFTs allow digital scarcity, which is sort of like a pretty unique moment in time, getting back to your point about being at pivotal moments. And look, these NFTs can take lots of different forms. They can involve music, video, they can be traditional physical forms of art like painting and artwork, photography, but are digitized and then put on the blockchain. They can involve artificial intelligence, be generated. So the tools that that's in part what they are. They're a record of ownership, digital scarcity, but they're also tools which can be used, new forms of medium for artists, or new tools for artists to use, which is really exciting. It enables them to scale their business of being artists and grow and reach enormous global markets.
Well, there is a point.
Really exciting.
There is a point where, you have to ask yourself, in this new model, will galleries exist? It'll be platform-based, but not galleries. Who needs a middleman when you're selling your own artwork on a blockchain?
You're doing yourself out of a job there, Scott, because there are artists, like Damien Hirst, he's got an NFT collection called The Currency. He's the artist who famously was it a shark in a glass case?
Yes, yeah.
He, in his NFT collection called The Currency, the purchaser had the ability to buy the physical artwork, but then also they could decide, do they want to keep the physical artwork, or in which case the NFT would be burned or destroyed, and or they could keep the NFT, in which case the physical was destroyed. So you can still have a time where people will want to trade, there'll be, and then there can be artists who want to have both forms.
It's the invention of, it comes back to this thing about the invention of scarcity, what you talked about, digital scarcity, which I've always really struggled with because it places art back in a place where it's not accessible. And one of the really interesting things about blockchains and NFTs is you go, well, you can still have the artwork. So artists take a long time to get their head around this idea that your digital artwork, you want to be infinitely replicable. You want as many people as possible to own that thing and love it, as many multiples as you can. And of course they're going, no, it's all about rarity. I don't want people to own this thing. You're like, but they're not owning it.
Yeah.
What they're doing is they're sharing it. The actual ownership is locked into the NFT. That's the exciting part. NFTs on their own, ascribing value to something, isn't that interesting? But ascribing ownership of something that's wildly popular, and everyone, it's the same ones and zeros appearing on your screen. I find that really compelling.
One of the things that I find interesting for artists, and the idea of owning a Hirst NFT, or the Goldie NFT, Charles Goldie NFTs, which were sold, I think it was Webb's, recently. That was an event in New Zealand's art history. That involved potentially the ability for the purchaser to smash the the plates on which the NFTs were made. But I find really interesting the possibility that with an NFT, the purchaser of the NFT could receive some sort of additional benefit for holding the NFT by way of what are called airdrops. You know, there might be future NFTs, or there might be a change in the sort of benefit that could attach to it. And the way they use NFTs in the music industry is, for example, to give a fan experience. You know, if you hold the NFT, it's a bit like your special concert ticket.
Yeah, we actually have some great use cases of artists doing that at the moment in New Zealand. So Diaz Grimm, fantastic. He's completely gone like virtual as an avatar, and everything that he does now is through the blockchain, through NFTs. Exactly that.
Yeah.
This complete Web3 artist now. It's fantastic.
And the other area for artists, which they can possibly benefit from the NFTs, is in terms of royalties. So you can bake into the minting of the NFT a royalty which is payable when the NFT is purchased, sold,
or resold.
Yeah, I mean, it is. There's a big issue at the moment, or debate between platforms about whether or not they enforce royalties and things like that. But this is an additional revenue stream for artists. It's an opportunity for, I call it a honeypot for creatives who have, musicians and artists who have traditional physical forms of art, the opportunity for them to digitize and attract a whole new market, and but also have ongoing revenue and royalties, which I find incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got people of all ages, right, buying these things. They're not just rich people. There's a kid in Britain, Benjamin Ahmed, who made $1 million on weird whales or something like that. I think we'll see.
This comes back to a really interesting thing, though, because it's not been adopted by most artists. 99% of artists have no interest in this at all, and which is surprising because I've been trying to push it very gently, and I do wonder why the uptake is so slow. I think we're in very, very early pioneering days.
Agreed.
In this education project that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And a slow, gentle one.
And I think there's other emerging technologies coming out at the moment as well. We've got about 2 minutes left, so I want to kind of leave it off with this thought. So with artificial intelligence really ramping up in like the news today, I've kind of been thinking about this idea of, most traditional artists, even, Vermeer, etc., even Andy Warhol uses other people, what do you call them? People to help with their work? Yeah.
Assistants
to help produce their work. So if we insert artificial intelligence to then create the artworks, do you think there's an issue there with intellectual property, anything like that? I really want to hear your thoughts in about 30 seconds each.
I don't think there is, because I think you set the parameters in ChatGPT, for example, to be legally correct. So you can say, give me a 15 or a 20% sufficient difference in this thing. AI and large language models, they don't copy things, they learn in the same way a human does when they visit a gallery.
Yeah. From a lawyer's perspective?
Yeah, I think there's lots of really interesting legal issues around copyright, trademark infringement, and that's in the NFT space, involving artificial intelligence. And a lot of this is unresolved. The tech's moving so fast. How does it apply to, and this is where I guess where I come in, how does it apply to the existing law? Do we need tailored law to deal with AI and cryptocurrency, NFTs, Web3? And if we get that, by the time we get it, is it going to be out of date?
Yeah, that's true. It is. And my personal thoughts, it's the human that comes up with the concept that inputs it into the artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, for example. Therefore, it's still, in my eyes, still considered art created by an artist, because it's from that human thought.
I mean, in the US,
love it.
They've got, with AI, supposedly it's not infringing copyright, or you can't have a copyright in something that's created by the AI, even if the human is putting in the prompts, the tool.
Oh, really?
the inputs.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that flew by, guys. Thank you so much for sitting down with
It
me.
was great. Thank you.
Talking about the history and future of digital art. We will probably be having more conversations like this over the next coming months. So check us out at blockchain.org.nz. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.